Taking data on individual goals and objectives is one of the most common activities performed in DDtrac. In order to take data on individual goals, you need to have those goals set up for each individual student. If you're going to take behavior data, you need to have behaviors and triggers set up. You can select the individual student's name from the Students menu on the main homepage for DDtrac. This takes you to a page that allows you to see the past comments entered for that student. These comments are made like in a back and forth book to communicate students' individual progress. If you took a data on a past visit, you can click the little pencil icon and that will allow you to edit the comment. If you actually entered a comment but didn't take any other kind of data during that session, a little X will appear next to the comment, which would allow you to delete a comment. For instance, I could actually delete this comment because although I entered a detailed comment, I never took any instructional data during the therapy session. To delete the comment, you'd click the X, and then it would ask you to permanently delete that comment. If you click yes, the comment will be deleted. If you leave it set at no, then you'll keep the comment. This takes you to the Data Entry tab. When you're on the Data Entry tab, you have the ability to take instructional data, which is data on academic goals or therapy goals related to, let's say, speech therapy or occupational therapy. Behavior data, responding to behavior episodes. Social data based on observations of individual social interactions. You can also take those observations that I was just mentioning, enter a milestone, which would represent a change in students' programming, or take assessment data, which would be how a student would respond to a standardized assessment. So if I take instructional data, I'll be taken to a page that shows me all of the goals and objectives for the student. If I wanted to see the past data entered for the yes/no objective, I'd click the little magnifying glass icon. It loads the data and it shows the last time this was taken, the student for no got a minus, and a plus. If you have edit permission for the student, you'll also be able to delete past data. If I accidentally entered one of the I could actually check one of the negative comments and I would delete that selected data point. It's going to prompt me, and if I go OK, then that data point will be deleted. Let's say I want to take data on my commenting IC objective. This takes me to a screen that shows me all of the past performance on all the individual targets for commenting IC. A target is the individual thing that you're taking data on. For some objectives, you might only have one target. For this particular objective, the student has many targets. The way DDtrac organizes the targets for each objective is it groups the mastered targets at the top of the page, and they're colored in black. This is to let you know these are the targets you're probably going to have to work on the most because these are the targets the student is doing the worst on. It then groups the targets the student has mastered, the one they're doing well on, in blue at the bottom of the page. Whether or not a target is mastered is based on the mastery criteria you set up for each objective within that goal. In addition to showing the mastered and the unmastered targets, DDtrac will also show you the date the target was last worked on. This is a correct-incorrect data collection type, and I'm going to check correct for fence and incorrect for stairs. You don't have to take data for every target every session. You also have the ability to take a comment at the bottom of the page, which just describes the student's overall demeanor when completing this particular objective. You click Update Data, you're taken back to another page that says, OK, on commenting IC, and it's checked off, indicating that you just worked on this particular objective. There are many data collection types in DDtrac. I'm not going to go through all of them, but another one is if I take computer, this has a drop-down list. Will allow me to enter data related to the number of prompts or the type of prompt I had to give in order to get the student to accomplish this objective. So for example, if I had to give a visual prompt, I could also have to do a gesture prompt. And then again, I can enter my comment, struggling, and click Update Data. And again, this one is now checked off. If I click the End Session button at the bottom of the page, it will take me to the observation data entry page, which will allow me to enter those observation comments that you share between therapists and instructors and parents. So ideally, you want to enter a long comment surrounding how the student did this day to enable another therapist working with the student to say, no, what was working and what was not. So So for example, I would say he had difficulty in computer today because he wasn't paying attention, and I gave a recommendation to the next therapist. It's also a good idea to label your post so that it's tagged, and I can then look at all of the posts labeled difficult to see if there's any patterns that I can discern about the days that the student had difficulty. You also automatically enter a post date and time. You can change that if you're actually taking data for a past date or time. So if this was a post for yesterday, I could actually change the date from today's date to yesterday's date, and when I post the observation, all of the data I collected today will be backdated to yesterday's date. The next type of data I'm going to take is behavior data. Behavior data is in response to a behavior episode, and it includes things like the start date and time of the episode, a trigger if you know what started the episode, let's say avoidance escape, the location where the behavior occurred, and these locations are defined in the site setup by the administrator for your site. So these locations are for your entire school or classroom. Then you have to list the behaviors that occurred during the behavior episode. So I could say kicking for less than 1 minute, just one of them. And then I'm going to add one more behavior, biting, and that was also less than 1 minute, and we had one of those behaviors. I had to do a divert his attention to work on avoiding the behavior episode. I tried that for 2 minutes. It didn't work very well, so I performed a calming exercise for 5 minutes to get him to calm down. You can also specify if there's anybody else involved. In this case, it was staff. And any consequences. Let's say he lost privileges. He didn't get to go out to afternoon recess because of his behavior. Well, let's pretend like he hurt his foot when he tried to kick me. And then I could say, enter a comment about the behavior episode. When entering a comment, it's useful to tell the next person what was successful around the behavior episode. For example, I said I was able to calm him by performing deep breathing exercises. That'll let the next person know that that might be an effective technique to deal with behavior episodes for this particular student. You can submit the behavior, and you get a behavior or incident report documenting all the details surrounding the incident, and you can click this email report link, and that would allow you to email that report to anyone that has permission to access the student's data. So for example, I could email the report to Selma Dew, who happens to be the student's parent, and it would send the email off to that person, and they would then be able to click the link, log in, and see the details of that behavior report. If I didn't want to send the email, I could just print the report out just using my standard browser's print mechanism and send the report home in the student's folder. The last type of data entry I'm going to mention is social data entry. If you're taking social data, really that's just based on observation of the student's socialization, perhaps during a classroom interaction, during group work, during RDI type exercises you're performing with the student. In this case, you would just say whether or not you observed any of these social behaviors during the interaction time. So you could say he coordinated, but we had a parallel activity and he refused to coordinate, but he did synchronize with lock and key actions. The ability to observe social behaviors is highly dependent on the amount of time you spend in the socialization activity. You can enter the amount of time you spent observing social interaction and also a comment about how the social interaction went. Once you've entered that comment, you can click Update Social Data, and that comment and all the data will be written back to DDtrac, and you can see that the social comment has appeared on the page.